Today I work to expand my palette of skin colors. As always, this is a learning process for me. In this case, it is partially about how to increase my facility with paint, but even more, it is the beginning of a journey of playing tabletop and role-playing games that are racially and culturally conscious. In this process, I have no authority. I am a student only. So this little video, in which I paint 3 halfling Blood Bowl characters, is meant as a thank you, or a recognition, or simply a shout that I have found someone to learn from. I am speaking, of course, of my favorite podcast, Three Black Halflings, hosted by Luyanda Unati Lewis Niao, Jeremy Cobb, and Jasper William Cartwright. I found this podcast in a way that, according to the cast of Three Black Halflings, is similar to the reason the show itself came into being. I am painting a Blood Bowl team with my son, and I don't want him to think that halflings can only have a single hue of skin. To inform myself of the possibilities, I typed the term black halfling into Google to find images. I found none. But I did find this podcast that so eloquently describes the problem we all face, namely, that the canon of fantasy is dominated by heroes with light skin in a narrow range. This is really strange, considering that one of the wonderful things about fantasy and games of imagination is that possibilities are less restricted than in reality. But the apparent prescription of the gatekeepers of the games we play is to restrict our imaginations to the heroes of Northern Europe and the settings inspired by Northern Europe. What a waste of potential! Not only for our stories, but also for the storytellers who will not feel empowered by this structure because they do not see themselves represented in the artwork and writing of the publishers of these games. In the case of these halflings that I am painting, this is only a first step, and it risks addressing race and culture in a crude and superficial way. But it is a first step for me. I commit to taking that first step and taking the steps that follow. You should take that risk too. It will only enrich the games you play and the stories you tell. Paint halflings that don't look like you and halflings that do look like you, and examine how that makes you feel. Examine how it affects your story arc. Then take the next step. What is the next step? Well, if you are white like me, find a teacher. Maybe it will be your friend. Maybe it will be through articles on race and racism in fantasy culture. I humbly suggest that the Three Black Halflings podcast is a wonderful and inviting way to take some steps. What if you don't find yourself represented adequately or enthusiastically in the materials of your chosen game? Then your first step may be to seek out someone who has a similar experience, like the cast members of Three Black Halflings. But it may also be to become a teacher yourself. Realize that your story is part of the greatest story that humanity is trying to tell in this moment, and we who have our stories told blaringly and monochromatically through the megaphone of popular culture until we risk believing that they are the only important stories, will not play rich games, create rich stories, or live rich lives without you. And the greatest thing is that all you have to do is to play the character you want to play without trying to conform to the image of the character I might guess you would play. Do that, and I promise that I will learn from you. I want to assure anyone listening to this that Three Black Halflings is a podcast that will improve your game of D&D, whether you recognize an issue about race in your campaigns, or know that you have great respect for your players and yourself. The story of race, culture, and the individual dealing with these issues is such a compelling, heroic story that this podcast captures the heart of Dungeons & Dragons. And if you can't tell, it has captured my heart as well. Thank you, Three Black Halflings, for sharing so passionately your experiences with this form of storytelling that I love and for teaching me so much. I will continue listening and learning. My D&D games will be better for it, and I will be a better person for it. Your efforts are transforming the game into a legitimate form of art and human expression. For my own next step, I am taking the advice of Luyanda Unati Lewis Niao and replacing the race line on my D&D character sheets with a line that says species. Just like painting a few miniatures with brown skin, this is only a first step. Let's keep taking first steps until we get somewhere really cool. for watching. Please try listening to Three Black Halflings for the sake of the larger gaming community, and thank you for your valor.